Hello guys, welcome to another video. The Lament of an Immortal, Worlds Collide by IAWWMS. Chapter 6 Divine Therapy, the girl who eliminated the chaos and the failed kidnapping. A slightly uncomfortable meeting was being felt, the atmosphere somewhat tense in the living room of the small residence that was located in the floating fortress. For the first time in a long time, Ch6, the boy who became the successor of the Almighty God, had in front of him someone who knew perfectly well the pain he felt in his heart. For he was in front of the bearer of Immortal's greatest blessing, the girl who was once called as the Witch of the Highlands, Azusa Aizawa. "You look a little nervous, are you okay?" Ch6 asked very nervously. Well, it had been many years since he had spoken to someone outside of celestial affairs or the floating fortress itself. "A little, I guess I was never one of the girls who didn't feel tense in front of some man," she said, trying to evade the gaze. But inside she could feel something. "This is stupid. Less than 10 minutes ago I could talk to him in an easier way. Could it be that I was so angry that I let my nerves out because of the anger that was blinding me? No, maybe it's the fact that I'm in front of a guy who once had 9 wives," she thought. "I guess you feel uncomfortable about the fact that you are in front of a person who had 9 wives. That's fine, it's to be expected. Even in my old world it was something very rare. Very different from the world in which I met the girls," Ch6 said, somewhat serious and a little nervous as he stood up and walked to the window looking at the tree from which the nest of those birds had fallen. Well, remembering the moral norms that were lived in his old world, remembering that kind of things made him a little nostalgic, because from his mind emerged memories of his past as a child, when he lived with his parents, the days he was in school. Memories that made him long for his past. That was when Azusa noticed. "Your old world? What exactly do you mean?" Azusa questioned somewhat doubtfully while thinking, his old world? Could it be that, he too? Ch6 just closed his eyes for a moment as he came back to sit next to Azusa. "I guess you must have already sensed it. Just as you, who are not from the world you met your daughters from. I am not from the world I met them in," Ch6 said as he turned his head towards the portrait of his 9 wives. "Then you?" Azusa replied, surprised. "Yes, that's right," Ch6 said, making a slight smile. "I never thought I would ever see someone from Japan again," he pointed as he took a seat next to her. "I guess I should start where my life changed, the day of my death." Ch6 explained, poured some tea for Azusa and continued. "My name is Ch6 Mochizuki. Before I came to this world I lived in Japan. I was a 15-year-old student when my life changed, all thanks to a divine accident." Ch6 explained, so that Azusa lost her nerves a little. Little by little, as he was talking about his past, several melancholic feelings began to emerge from him. Remembering those memories that he repressed for a long time began to grow again a feeling of humanity inside him. For a long time, Ch6 was acting in an automatic way, as if a robot in programmed functions. That was something that the gods themselves made them worry, because the one who was once known as the closest god to humanity was losing it. Time went by, talking about how he met his wives, how they gave him a territory to create a nation, even the battles and adventures he lived when he lived with his family in that world. All the stories until the end, until the moment when his wives asked him to end it all. It was when Ch6 for a moment could not stand it anymore, his voice cracked, because he had never told that pain to anyone. Even though all the gods or the terminals of Babylon knew it, he had never taken that pain out of his chest. Maybe it was because of the overflow of feelings that resurfaced in him, or because he felt someone familiar for being a former inhabitant of his world, or the fact that both lived a similar situation. The point was that he could finally take out that pain that he repressed in that face of falsehood. For a few seconds Ch6 let his tears come out, to later regain his composure, and wiping his tears with his right hand he spoke, "Forgive me, it's just that. Well, it's been a long time since I talked to anyone, and well, I never talked to anyone after Lean's death, so, forgive me. It's kind of like group therapy. Even if it's just the 2 of us," she pointed out. While looking at the cup with tea, she turned to see Ch6, who was still a bit grief-stricken. "I guess it's my turn then," she replied with a smile. "My name is Azusa Aizawa. Like you, I live in Japan, but unlike you, I was a corporate employee. My life was completely exhausting. I died at the age of 27, because of the long working hours that were required of us. I practically died on the job. Luckily I was welcomed by a goddess who granted me a new life." Azusa explained in the same way. Little by little her words started to become happy. Talking about her experiences and adventures with her daughters and her friends made her smile start to spread to Ch6. Suddenly, and without realizing it, Ch6 began to question her about things that seemed curious to him, and she, far from getting annoyed, answered him as if they were acquaintances. For some strange reason, the shyness that Azusa felt when talking to him was slowly beginning to dissipate. At the same time that these two were talking, they were seen by a pink-haired girl from the second floor of the residence. A girl who looked for a way to help her brother was with a smile that she could not contain. At last her brother had opened his heart a little. "You look happy, Karen," was heard behind her. It was a beautiful and slender girl with short silver-purple hair. "I'm a worry, sister, what can I tell you?" She smiled in the direction of her companion. "And you, how are you doing, Mohora?" she questioned. "Better, but that boy sure has trouble talking to people," Mohora replied, lightly massaging her neck. "Speaking of people who have communication problems, where is young Akari? I haven't seen her since the first raid started," Karen questioned. "She is shy, Rimuru has anger issues, don't compare them." Although well, it was to be expected that behavior from both of them. "She went to guard the princess, for any situation that may arise," replied Mohora, while the two kept watching their younger brother interacting with another person again. In a world apart, the thunderous sound of cannons echoed in the battlefield, the incessant burst of explosions and clashes of steel echoed in the area. Two armies were fighting fiercely without giving truce. On one side were the troops of Tempest, led by the King of the Flames, the highest-ranking general in the military order of Tempest. The righteous Oni, Benimaru, who was currently accompanied by an elderly person, the Sword Saint, Hakuro. On the other, the army of the Kingdom of Tills. "Surrender now, and I will promise that we will not harm the deserters," was heard in an authoritative and intimidating manner by the voice of General Benimaru. Suddenly a girl of elven race, copper-reddish hair and wearing a silver armor with golden edges, rushed with her sword in hand in counterattack of his request. "We, the Knights of the Order of the Kingdom of Tills, will never stop fighting. For the honor of our roots and our nation. We will fight to protect our homeland from despicable invaders," pointed the girl, attacking fiercely, which made Benimaru respond by attacking with his sword, causing the girl to be projected into the air. "Let the example of this girl serve as a lesson. No one imposes himself before us. No one imposes himself before Tempest. No one," he expressed as he was about to give her the death blow, but was stopped by a swift silver-haired swordswoman. The strength of the swordswoman was such that she even sent Benimaru flying momentarily with one blow, which made him surprised, since no one had achieved such a feat for a long time. "Don't think that just because you are more, you have the advantage," shouted the silver-haired girl. "Zelina, are you okay?" she addressed her companion, as she stopped a sudden attack from Hakuro. "I, Zelina von Osten, leader of the Order of Knights, member of the elite of Her Majesty Queen Elia, daughter of the prestigious House Osten, would never be defeated so easily by invading villains," shouted the elven girl angrily, as she stood up and in battle stance. "You are resilient, I admit it, but you will never be able to stand against us. We already dominated the great empire of Albarn. It is only a matter of time before you fall at our feet. Why don't you better do yourselves a favor and surrender? This way we will avoid the unnecessary spilling of so much blood," Benimaru pointed out in a demanding manner, which made the elven girl burst out in fury. "You miserable demons!" shouted furious Zelina, lashing out against Benimaru. She quickly began to wave her long sword, invoking a spell, creating a beam that impacted directly against Benimaru, which blinded him momentarily, to later lunge at him with her sword. Despite that attack, the general remained calm, because with his granted abilities, that kind of attacks are nothing for him, which made the reddish knight girl more nervous. "Don't despair, Zelina, I'll help you," shouted her companion, but she was intercepted by Hakuro, who attacked using a diagonal cut, making the silver-haired girl retreat a little. "Wow, I see you are impressive. Usually someone normal would have been decapitated with this attack," pointed out the old swordsman. "Please sir, a slow attack like that couldn't even touch me," pointed out the girl. "Pride will lead to your death, girl," pointed out the old man as he moved into an attacking position. Suddenly the roar made by the clash of swords began to resonate in the environment. At the sight of anyone could only see small flashes of sparks from the blow of the swords, but at the sight of the most experienced could see a fight on par. The speed and technique of the old man were repelled by the strength and courage of the girl. While these two fought, Zelina and Benimaru exchanged a few words. "You are brave, girl. Your bravery and courage is to be admired. Your determination is strong. However, this is a fight you have already lost. We already have the power of half of this world. No nation of this world could rival against the army of Tempest. It would be wiser to let us pass and submit to our will. I promise that we will not hurt those who serve us," pointed Benimaru in a more polite way. Marathon, the royal family of the great empire of Albarn. They murdered thousands of innocent civilians who defended themselves in Vanolark and massacred Brandel's troops. And you still think I will believe their lies? This world was in peace and tranquility for thousands of years, and you turned it into hell in less than a day? Zelena pointed out angrily. As she channeled her energy. Little by little her strength was restored. Okay, second round. Zelena, don't awaken that power, we still don't know the origin of those abilities. Use the nanomachines, pointed the silver-haired girl in an authoritative manner. As you say, teacher, pointed Zelena reluctantly. Teacher, I thought you were a girl. But I see there is something more special about you, pointed out Hakuro. Tell me, young lady, wouldn't you like to be my disciple? If you surrender, I could intervene for you too before our master. You flatter me, old man, but, the silver-haired girl was saying, but suddenly she began to increase her speed, causing from the clash of the swords her swords to break from the pressure she was exerting on them. I would never accept to be the disciple of someone who has blinded the lives of innocent people at the behest of an evil master. So, what do you plan to do now that you no longer have weapons? Now you are at my mercy? Said the old man confidently. Suddenly the girl began to recite a chant while extending her hand. Burn, infernal flames. Burn to the bone. Suddenly a flame hit the old man, damaging him considerably. You are strong, I admit it, but my sword master is above your capabilities. Besides, she is a goddess. Suddenly the old man stood up somewhat damaged. Well, second round, said the old man confidently, placing his sword in a defensive stance. Soon, the silver-haired girl, using her magical abilities, pulled out from the pouch of her garment a peculiar sword. A crystalline sword began to glow around it. Something that even caught Benimaru's attention, for they could both feel it. That sword had an energy that could rival against their master's swords. Get the hell out of this world, now, pointed the silver-haired girl. That sword? Who are you really? Hakuro questioned, somewhat confused. My name is Adele von Asham, but you can call me Mile, and I'm just an average girl, she said as she leapt at the old man, smashing his sword in a matter of seconds. Wow. I see cousin Tuya and the teacher were right. This sword can really hold my strength, Mile pointed out, laughing. Average? That's not average at all, pointed out Hakuro on his knees and somewhat surprised, as his sword had been shattered on the spot. Stay away from Hakuro, Benimaru pointed, launching an attack with his sword, same that was blocked by Miles' crystalline sword. You are too strong, one of the strongest people I have met in my long life. Tell me, why did you invade this world? What would you gain by invading a world weaker than you? Mile questioned seriously as she kept her distance between her and Benimaru, who helped Hakuro up. I doubt you understand how complicated our reason is, little girl, about the answer our master seeks, pointed out Benimaru. What answer is worth more than the lives of thousands of people? Mile pointed out somewhat seriously. I do not question our master's decisions. His will is our duty. His orders are absolute, pointed out Benimaru, annoyed. I see, then they are just puppets that only follow orders blindly without thinking about it. They do not question if it is right or wrong. They only do it to follow the orders of such a dastardly master that ordered the invasion of several worlds, Mile pointed out, somewhat disappointed, because deep down she did not want to believe that there were such powerful people that would follow orders of that kind. The duty of a general is to follow his master. We do not question his authority, pointed out Benimaru, annoyed. Then are you going to tell me that for a second? For just a second you did not hesitate to enter into conflict against a peaceful world? Mile questioned seriously. Hesitating is something a general would never do, pointed out Hakuro, annoyed. That was when Benimaru remembered that talk he had with his master before starting the raids. I became a demon king to save all those who lost their lives because of the Falmouth kingdom. I became a demon king to help them, if I have to become a conqueror of worlds, in order to find a way to bring happiness to Azusa and the other people who lost someone in our nation, so be it. That was when Benimaru began to question, was this the right thing to do? Before, his master had never started a conflict unnecessarily or if someone didn't provoke it, but this was different, totally different. Sometimes, a leader doesn't need a general to follow his orders, but a friend to help him see the wrongness of his actions, Mile pointed out. That would be insubordination to a high command. No one questions an order, stated Hakuro. One does not question an order, but the reason for such an order, Mile affirmed. Although he was full of doubts, Benimaru did not yield to the words of Mile, and asking for a little more faith to his master, he began to manifest part of the power of his master. Little by little Benimaru was wrapping himself in an immense black mist, the skies began to darken, the body of Benimaru levited through the air and prepared to attack. "I'm sorry, girl. But you are the enemy and my duty is to finish you off," he pointed out somewhat doubtfully as a dark flame manifested itself before everyone. "Get away from me, master," Zelina roared, attacking Benimaru with a dark blue lightning bolt. "Stop, Zelina," Miles shouted in annoyance. Soon a mist just like the one that enveloped Benimaru was beginning to cover Zelina. Her gaze looked completely empty, and her voice was faintly audible, as if a hypnotic trance was. "I'll finish you all off," Benimaru pointed out, launching the burst of flames that were stopped the moment a faint whisper of Zelina's voice was heard. "Beelzebub." And so both attacks were launched. The flames that Benimaru launched were repelled by the same ability of his master, which confused him more. "That attack is the same as our master," Hikaru pointed out. "Order the troops to retreat now," affirmed Benimaru while looking at Zelina, who was still in a trance-like state and with forced breathing. "But sir," questioned Hikaru. "That's an order now," affirmed Benimaru to subsequently retreat from the battlefield. The battle ended with a strategic retreat, for not to mention the doubt he had now, he had to inform his master about what happened on the battlefield. After all, a girl who could use the same powers as her master was something out of the ordinary. And as Tempest's troops retreated, Zelina came out of her trance and fell at her master's feet. "I told this girl not to use those abilities, now it's just a matter of time before he arrives in this world," Mile affirmed. Inside the city-state, the Demon King, Rimuru Tempest, was walking accompanied by a beautiful elf, the second daughter of the Duke in turn, Harina Inae's Mochizuki. Normally the princess was very friendly to people who came to this town. When questioned why, her answer was simple. "All the people in this town have treated me with great affection and kindness since I was a child. This is the kind of town that you can walk around without something bad happening to someone. I used to walk around town since I was a child, everyone treated me very well. I think it is logical that we have to respond to the world with the same courtesy of how we are treated," Harina pointed out as she waved to passers-by. "You said your family name Mochizuki, a bit of a peculiar name, no?" Rimuru pointed out, somewhat curious. "We are descendants of the first duke of this nation. Legends say he was a boy who migrated from faraway Ishin. Others that his family were renegade nobles from the ancient nation called Yulong," she pointed out. "I see, that's kind of surprising. By the way, I'm curious, those means of transportation that the children had, who invented them?" Rimuru said in a polite manner. "You don't even seem to know anything about this world," laughed the princess a little in a charming way. "Those were inventions of the first duke, bicycles, most of the toys and board games. All those were inventions created by the first duke in collaboration with the predecessors of the International Strand Factory. Those products were the economic pillar of this nation for many years," pointed out the princess as they arrived in front of the statue that was located in front of the palace. Which made Rimuru raise her head and react in a somewhat surprised way. "Is that him? Is that your ancestor, princess?" Rimuru questioned as he wondered. "It's him, the boy who attacked me. Did a spirit attack me?" "No, that's impossible, I can overpower them." Then he is still alive. Then he noticed the device that this statue had in his hand. A smartphone. It means that this guy was not originally from this world. He thought until in his mind he remembered, sure, the bicycles, those cars, the toys in the form of robots. Everything, all this he took out to create his empire in this world. This guy took advantage of his knowledge to have money and create a nation for himself. That's right, he was Tuya Mochizuki, the first Grand Duke of this country. If you want to know more about our history, we could go to the central library of the city. I'm sure your doubts would be solved, pointed out the princess. Quickly, Rimuru thought of an idea. If I kidnap this girl, I could have the advantage against that guy. I doubt he would let one of his descendants in danger. If I capture her, I could negotiate Azusa's release, she thought, and was about to use her abilities to create a portal and return to Tempest when a voice was heard in the distance. "Princess, don't neglect your duties," pointed a girl with a mask that only covered her eyes. A beautiful girl with dark hair and a shapely figure was approaching in front of them. "Sorry, Akari. I got a little distracted," pointed the princess. Young Rimuru, this is my friend and swordmaster. Akari Mikami. Akari, this is Rimuru Tempest. A newly arrived traveler. I know it's a lot of trouble, but could you show her around the city? I point to then run off in the direction of the palace. Sure, princess, it will be a pleasure. The girl nervously pointed to extend her hand to Rimuru. GGG, good morning sir, my name is Akari Mikami. Believe me, it's a pleasure to finally meet you, said the shy girl. Gusto is mine, said Rimuru, extending her hand. Tell me, how can I help you? Questioned Akari somewhat seriously. Could you tell me more about the royal family? Rimuru asked as she watched the elf girl disappear into the distance. The current duke, Liner Aeneas Mochizuki, his father was the former duke and his mother was the third daughter of the king of the kingdom of Lestia. He came to power at the age of 14 at his father's request. He betrothed Princess Astrid Tiara Elfrau, second daughter of the Queen of Elfrau, when she was 179 years old. Akari explained, to which Rimuru was astonished. How did a 14-year-old boy betroth an elf at such a young age? She questioned. Many think this was an arranged marriage, like most kingdoms. However, here in Brunhild they have something that almost no country has, pointed out Akari somewhat happily. What thing is it? Rimuru questioned. In other nations, kings can only marry members of royalty or nobility. However, here they are handled in a very different way, she said, laughing, turned to see Rimuru and explained. In this nation there is no such thing as what we would call aristocracy. They were never necessary, and never will be, so no one in the royal family is limited to a specific social class, explained the girl. You mean? Said Rimuru, but was interrupted by Akari. Yes, that's why Brunhild is different from the rest of the nations of the world. The closeness that the royal family has with its people is something that no other nation has. The royal family is always with the people, and the people are always with the royal family. It has always been like that, and it always will be. That's fascinating. Rimuru pointed out. All members of the royal family have or have had a history with some civilian in the town, for better or worse. And the princess is no exception, she stated. A town like this has to be very fond of her, he pointed out. That's right sir, I am very fond of the people here and this world, she said happily as she placed her hand on Rimuru's shoulder. That's why I can't let you do what you plan to do, she pointed out. And before Rimuru realized it, the scenery changed before her eyes. From the huge palace and Tuya's statue, she was now in front of the fountain in the center of Rimuru City, in the capital of Tempest Federation. What happened? What did you do? Rimuru pointed out, somewhat surprised. Looking around him. I'm sorry young man, but I can't let you do what I was thinking. I won't let you kidnap the princess, return you to your world. I have to ask you to consider not to bring our world into the disputes you have against young Tuya. Whatever you try to do it among yourselves, don't drag other worlds into your fight, pointed the girl with a serious face. After a bow she took her leave and transported to her world. What the hell, who is she? Reacted Rimuru, then tried to return to Brunhild. However, something prevented that, as if a barrier was erected, prevented accessing that world again. What is going on? How is it possible that I can't return to that world again? Then after questioning herself a little she mentioned, Akari Mikami, I don't know who you are, but I will find out and you will regret having put you in my way.